When a player passes through a culling game barrier, the game randomly transfers that player to one of 9 locations. One of those locations given to Gojo students is Sendai Colony, where Yuta Okkotsu would face Dhruv Lakdawalla, Takkako Uro, Ryu Ishigori, and special grade Cockroach Curse Spirit Kurorushi. It was a pretty hard-fought battle, even for the cursed child with his many tricks such as his copied curse techniques and additional set of hands in his Shikigami partner Rika. But what would happen if we took Kinji Hakari, one of Yuta's classmates whom he is often compared to, and drop him in this colony to see if he can perform just as well or even better than his junior? To start, we should run down Hakari's abilities and his background to see how he stacks up to Yuta, and by extension, the opponents he'll be facing in the colony as well. Though he was suspended from Jujutsu High following the events of Jujutsu Kaisen 0 or the Night Parade of 100 Demons as a result of a heated disagreement with one of the conservative higher-ups that ended in a physical altercation, Hakari was held in high regard as a third-year student that rivaled special grade second-year Yuta Okkotsu. Yuta is often hailed as second only to their shared teacher Satoru Gojo in terms of unusual abilities, but Hakari honestly isn't too far behind. While its most notable use is undoubtedly through expanding his domain, Hakari's private pure love train curse technique is largely centered around pachinko, with the game of chance based on a fictional comedy romance manga of the same name. The exact details of the game's rules within the domain can be somewhat confusing, but similarly to any scratch-off or slot machine, Hakari just needs to match 3 in order to hit the illustrious jackpot. With each jackpot, Hakari gains an unlimited supply of cursed energy for the length of the game's theme song, with this abundance of cursed energy causing Hakari's body to reflexively perform reverse curse technique in spite of the fact he never actually learned to do so on his own. On top of this invincible state, Hakari can continue to open his domain repeatedly so long as he continues to hit jackpots, which is almost guaranteed to happen given the third year's almost supernatural luck. With this in mind, it's no wonder Yuta would say that once Hakari gets worked up, he is stronger than himself. What worked up means can change depending on who you ask, but other translations and interpretations of this statement say it's when he gets on a roll, meaning hitting multiple jackpots over time, which arguably provides him a boost in stats as well. Hakari being an equal or even superior to his junior Okkotsu is repeatedly reiterated before they each enter the colony, with Hakari himself saying he should be the one to handle Kashimo, given that his high amount of points likely mean he is the strongest player, implying he believes he is more equipped than Yuta to handle such a foe. But we as an audience all know it takes more than just might to win a battle of sorcery, so how would Hakari stack up if put in an identical scenario as Yuta against the opponents of Sendai Colony? Upon entering the colony, the cursed child intercepts a standoff between 4 different opponents of complex natures and conflicting abilities, the first of which being Dhruv, a sorcerer with 2 different types of independent Shikigami that for all intents and purposes actually isn't that strong considering how easily Yuta dispatches of him, and given what we've covered so far, Hakari should be able to do more of the same. The salient issue, however, is Kurorushi lying dormant. Kurorushi, the registered special grade curse spirit whom Kenjaku freed from curse spirit manipulation, considered Dhruv to be a particularly nasty opponent, so it remained hidden under the surface until the time was right. Shortly after Druv's death, Kurorushi reveals itself and decides it will feed on Yuta for allowing the other humans in the colony to escape. Kurorushi was admittedly a more difficult opponent for Yuta than Dhruv, but this is partially due to the restraints he placed on himself in the fight, acknowledging that 2 other players likely with high scores are watching him and deciding to center his game plan around that fact, preferring to conceal his capacity to use reverse curse technique and resigning Rika to protect the civilians in the stadium. Given that Hakari obviously doesn't have his own Rika, he may struggle with attempting to save the civilians if he attempts to do so at all, but the real problem again is Kurorushi. While I doubt Hakari would go to the lengths of concealing his reverse curse technique, a key difference between Hakari and his junior Okkotsu is his reverse curse technique. As mentioned prior, Hakari never actually learned how to utilize reverse curse technique himself during his days as a student, meaning all of his RCT capabilities originate purely from his body doing so unconsciously for him, automatically while in jackpot. This presents a problem, as Yuta was unable to fulfill his own conditions of exercising Kurorushi without the use of Rika or reverse curse technique, and immediately reveals himself to the other players as a result, meaning that unless he approaches the fight already in jackpot, Kurorushi will prove to be a major obstacle for Hakari, and could even mark the end of his culling games run here in extreme cases. In fact, an argument could be made that Hakari may not be able to deal with Kurorushi by outputting reverse curse technique in an identical manner, since Yuta himself implies that doing doing so is a very scarce maneuver almost unique to himself. We know this isn't entirely true since Shoko has become so valuable to Jujutsu High because she can output reverse curse technique to heal others. We just have no way of empirically proving Hakari can output RCT this way, especially considering he doesn't use reverse curse technique of his own volition. However, for the sake of the video, we'll just progress on saying Hakari does start in Jackpot and manages to get past Kurorushi with about the same level of difficulty as Yuta, if not just a bit more than seen in the original story. This would then of course reveal Hakari to Takkako Uro, a sorcerer that led squads of assassins in her first life during the Heian era. Her sky manipulation curse technique allows Uro to treat the sky as a surface, using it to her benefit to distort and alter the properties of her opponent's attacks, with other practical uses like clothing or allowing her to levitate over the colony. While Uro and Yuta demonstrate the speed and hands to rival one another, meaning Hakari should likewise be competitive here in that category as well, a difficult conversation we're going to have to engage with along the scenario is Hakari's somewhat limited arsenal. Okkotsu's curse technique is copy, and with the expansive arsenal he's managed to acquire in the admittedly little amount of time he's been a sorcerer, he has a trick to get out of pretty much any scenario he may find himself in, and with Rika by his side, he never quite lacks in raw firepower either. Hakari again is held in a similar stature or even one higher than Yuta, but Okkotsu without question has his senior beat when it comes to versatility and adaptability. When her speed and proficiency with her technique make Uro a difficult opponent for him by constantly warping his attacks, Yuta responds with curse speed to hold her in place for an assault from both he and Rika, but Hakari doesn't have access to this sort of maneuver and as a consequence will have a fair amount of trouble actually tagging Uro since he's largely an up-close beat stick type of fighter. A pretty good scenario for Hakari, but one that's fairly unlikely, is if he can corner Uro into a domain clash, which is something we'll go more in depth about later for obvious reasons, but if they do clash and Hakari wins, Uro's technique gets immediately burnt out, finally creating an opening for Hakari to land hits on her. The next opponent for Hakari, and arguably the most dangerous opponent in the entirety of the colony, is Ryu Ishigori, an incarnated sorcerer hailing from the Edo period like Thunder God Hajime Kashimo. What makes Ryu so formidable in the most simple of terms is sheer power. With his cursed energy discharge curse technique, Ryu can fire Kamehameha-like blasts of cursed energy, and he's the only sorcerer capable of releasing the same amount of power, regardless of whether or not he has activated his curse technique. This sounds simple enough and as if it wouldn't be a huge deal on the surface, until we discover Ryu is declared to boast the highest output of any player in the culling game, who can deal out punches that would cause a fully manifested Rika to hit her limit and disappear. It would be fair to say Okkotsu struggled with Ryu a fair deal when you consider his Granite Blast completely destroyed his hand to block, with Ryu forcing Yuta to use reverse curse technique with each of his bigger moves. This is another situation where Hakari will certainly have to approach his opponents while already in Jackpot, since he and Yuta likely have similar if not equal durability, meaning he won't be able to take too much punishment from Ryu for an extended period of time. As discussed in the matchup against Uro prior, Hakari's limited skill set proves to be an issue once again. Yuta defeats Ryu with the use of Uro's Thin Icebreaker and Rika to wear him down before redirecting his own Granite Blast to land on him via sky manipulation. Hakari will instead be resigned to a match of pure stats, where a combination of continuous on-a-roll jackpots and his fists will have to wear Ryu down. But I strongly believe that participating in any drawn-out fight against Ryu is not at all in Hakari's best interests, since missing even just 1 or 2 jackpots could easily cost him this fight. Ryu himself can take quite a fair amount of damage in his own right, however, as even with what appears to be a lack of reverse curse technique, Ryu routinely takes punishment from Yuta, Rika, and himself while getting back up and continuing to fight, again meaning Hakari certainly will have his work cut out for him here. But what likely interrupts this fight, or what Ryu may use to take Hakari's jackpot out of the picture, is the inevitable domain battle. The three-way domain clash may be the most important part of this scenario, as it can rule out multiple opponents for Hakari and lead to an ideal win condition for the third year. Cursed Energy can be a rather simple, yet at the same time quite complex power system, with a few still lingering questions about scenarios between sorcerers we can't completely call either way, or how certain abilities interact when pitted against each other. One of these being the three-way domain clash seen for the first time in Sendai Colony. A clash of 3 domains is more complex than that of 2, and with that in mind, it's difficult to discern how a sorcerer can win a clash against 2 other domains. But what do we know about Hakari's for it to match against his opponents one-on-one? As mentioned prior, it is particularly strong in a tug of war, given his non-lethal guaranteed hit that merely provides the information of the game of chance to his opponents, and an activation even faster than Mahito's in Shibuya. Given that this is the case, I can see a fair chance of Hakari beating Uro in a one-on-one clash, in which case she can again be overcome with her technique finally burnt out. Ryu is a much different story, as not only does his technique remain even after expanding his domain, but his granite blasts again remain just as strong regardless of whether his technique is active or not, meaning that Hakari, win or lose, actually doesn't have much to gain from engaging in a domain battle with Ryu. The Kurorushi Curse Spirit reappearing would likely produce the same results as in the original story, but it may be to Hakari's benefit if it began to attack Ryu to wear him down or even do fatal damage. All in all, Hakari would have a much harder time than his junior if he were to somehow spawn in Sendai Colony, not as a result of any lacking in his stats, but rather because his kit, or rather lack thereof, provides him little answer in the face of his versatile opponents, and we admittedly have to be fairly generous to the third year in certain scenarios to say he comes out on top. Dhruv, even with his powerful Shikigami, proves to be a minor obstacle, but Hakari's lack of RCT if he does not begin in Jackpot, and questionable ability to output reverse curse technique means Kurorushi could be a bigger problem than expected. Uro's curse technique will make it difficult to tag her, but without it, Hakari is more than able to land decent blows on her before she's dealt with by Ryu or Kurorushi. Ishigori, on the other hand, is easily the most difficult opponent for Hakari in the entire colony, since while they can contend with one another, he has little to no definitive ways of taking the Edo Period Sorcerer down, and could be taken out quickly if he experiences a lapse in jackpots, which, while not impossible, is extremely unlikely in the face of Kinji Hakari's incredible luck. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. Thank you for watching another one of my videos. I have others about Jujutsu Kaisen on the channel that you may enjoy if you like this one, but I plan to make even more videos about Jujutsu Kaisen with a couple big projects regarding the series coming soon, along with various other topics in the future. So subscribe for free to be notified of what I get up to in the future, such as when I upload or stream. Like this video to support both the channel and myself, as well as let me know that this is the type of content you want to see. Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything or other topics you'd like to see me cover in the future. Thank you all for watching, and have a great rest of your day.